I know what it is when you give up. And I know what it does not only to the person, but to the family. And that, like, your life is worth living. Trust me, you're needed.
Welcome to the Sober Spill podcast. I'm your host, Isabel. On this podcast, we have real conversations with people in recovery, their families, and organizations that pertain to this field. Today, I'm here with the host of the clinical side of our podcast, Jana Wu.
Thank you, Isabel. My guests will discuss best clinical practices, new emerging trends in substance use and mental health disorders, and how we can best take care of ourselves and our loved ones in recovery.
See you every Thursday.
And come spill with us soon. Today, I'm very excited and honored to have Sarah Fulkins, licensed mental health counselor and certified rehabilitation counselor with Mountainside. Sarah provides clinical outpatient assessments and therapy and brings a strong background in clinical rehabilitation counseling, and focuses on meeting people where they are at. Before joining Mountainside, she worked extensively with individuals with disabilities, the LGBTQA communities, young adults, and spent several years supporting the unhoused population in New York City. Her approach is grounded in compassion, inclusivity, and helping clients build practical tools for long-term wellness. So I'm very excited to have you here today. Welcome, Sarah Fulkins, LMHC.
CRC, yeah. Certified Rehabilitation Counselor.
Can we start with that? What is a CRC?
So I am a Certified Rehabilitation Counselor. It's a national certification, unlike my license where we get licensed by state. Mm-hmm. The certification is a national certification. And basically what we specialize is in disability counseling, helping individuals with disability rehabilitate their life everywhere from career to home life to adapting their ADLs, and also being able to focus on their mental health as well. If you have that, what I went on the clinical track for a CRC. So CRCs can go on two different tracks. There's a vocational track where you're really primarily like a vocational counselor for someone, helping them find purpose or employment in their life with a disability and how they can find adaptations. You can go on the clinical track, which is what I did, where when you're in school, not only do you study the CRC track, but I also studied the clinical track. So I studied mental health as well while I was in school, so I could really have that kind of duality when I graduated. And the beautiful thing about a CRC that's also different than our licenses is you actually take the exam while you're in school.
That is interesting.
So I was able to take the national exam in April before I graduated. So once you graduate, I then immediately was a CRC, and you're fully certified. And similar to mental health practice, I did an internship, and it required me to do some vocational counseling with individuals to focus on disability slightly within my internship experience. And I do have to do CEUs just like I do for my license. And every, I believe, 5 years, I have to get it renewed and do so many hours of CEUs, often with a lot of them primarily focusing on ethics and vocation.
Wow. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're at Mountainside with that unique experience and that education. What drew you to that? What drew you to mental health counseling and to become a certified rehabilitation counselor? Like, it's a really unique merger.
So my story to mental health is kind of interesting. I think disability has always been a focus of my life. For those not looking, I am a little person. I was born this way. I have something called spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia congenita. It's SEDC dwarfism for short.
SEDC dwarfism?
SEDC.
SEDC, thank you.
And then it's a form of dwarfism.
Oh, is it a form? Okay.
Spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia congenita. The congenita just means I was born with it. So I always feel like you can drop the C. But I was born with this. So I spent my whole life navigating and coping with my disability. I'm the only little person in my family. Both my parents are of average height. I am 1 in 99,000. So I have been beating the odds since I was little.
1 in 99,000?
Yeah, it's a genetic mutation. And I've found a lot of insecurity as a young age, obviously being a little person, being the black sheep of my family, being the only little person, felt a little isolating at times by all means. Of course, you get picked on, you deal with all of that. And my parents did a great job getting me involved with an organization called Little People of America at a very young age, where I found community and I got to meet other people who look like me, walk like me, spoke like me, and had experienced society and the world in the way I had. So I've always had this passion, often because of my community, for advocating for disability. So that's really what kind of drove that narrative in my life. And I moved to the city originally to pursue acting.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome. I love learning this about you.
Yeah.
You've got an incredible academic background, and you moved to New York City from where?
New Orleans, Slidell, Louisiana, but it's right outside New Orleans. Most people know New Orleans more. So I got my first master's degree, my MFA in acting at the New School for Drama here in the city. And that was what I spent the first almost 10 years in the city doing, was pursuing acting. I really wanted to change the way people like myself were portrayed in media. And I feel like media representation has such a big threshold on how we perceive individuals in society. Media has such a large impact. We see that with substance use disorder as well. And so I did that, and then COVID happened, and that started to dry up. So acting just started to change for me, and I realized it just wasn't getting the gigs I wanted. I wasn't doing the kind of work I wanted to do as with someone with a master's degree. And it was really challenging being a little person in the acting field, for sure. So but I wanted to make a difference for disability. So I literally just started to look up what could I do. And I found my program at UMass Boston, which specialized in both mental health counseling and disability. And I was like, oh, that's it. That is what I want to do with my life. That sounds like both avenues that I find so important, both my own mental health, and I started to study it, and I fell in love, and here I am years later, lucky enough to be fully licensed, and substance use disorder just sort of happened to me. I landed in my first internship was at a rehab, and I found this beautiful correlation between individuals struggling with substance use disorder and disability and the stereotypes associated with it, and kind of that insecurity that you naturally feel for something that often is genetically or environmentally predisposed to you. And I found this just connection with the community. And I found that some of my clients almost connected with me because I had such a unique identity that I hope sometimes it makes it a little easier to open up to me, because you can just look at me and know I've probably been through some stuff. And I just found this love for this community, and I've been in it ever since, and I love it.
Wow, there's a lot there. And I'm sure, there's a lot, I think, when we are working with people where, like you said, people can feel and sense things and your authenticity.
Yeah.
What was it like for you growing up being, sometimes I assume the only one in the room?
I would say, I always it almost feels like you're born a celebrity, to put it in a simple term. So I almost felt like I was born a celebrity, because I would go places, people would take pictures of me at times.
Without permission?
Yeah. Oh, I never give permission. So no, they would take pictures, follow, and there's a lot of just a lot of assumptions about who I was and how I had moved through the world, just based on my stature. And there's so much more to me than my stature. I'm a big theater nerd. I'm a daddy's girl. I love my friends. I'm very loyal. I'm a loyal Leo. And I just felt like often my identity at times was so simplified to just my stature. That's who I am. That's what I am. That's how I move in this world. And I just always wanted to prove that wrong, that I'm so I think it drove me in its own ways. Eventually, definitely insecurity. Junior high was real rough. Lots of bullying, all that stuff. Everybody's so insecure. So they're just projecting their own insecurity onto you. And then you're insecure. So then I took things so personal. And it took a long time for me to depersonalize individuals who were saying harmful things to me, because at the end of the day, that's what they're going through. That's their own projection of their own struggle onto me. And I think sometimes being a little person, you feel like an easy target. And just learning to actually have sympathy for those individuals, as opposed to get angry or upset or feel bad about myself as a result of someone else's projection on me, because they don't know me. What matters to me and the opinions that matter to me are those that I love, those that I care about, those that really know me at my core. Those are the people whose opinions I hold, and of course my own.
How did you take that experience, and then it's interesting going into acting where
Yeah,
people
yeah.
are like it's like taking the inverse and then having people actually stare at you. I know when I
Yeah.
was little, I hated when people looked at
Yeah.
me, and now I have a job where people are looking at us all day, right? Like, how did you get from there to there?
Because I had the control. It was a control thing.
Okay,
Like, right?
interesting.
Okay, so if you're going to stare at me, I'm going to give you something to stare at. Let me show you what I can do. And it gave me the ability to show them something I wanted to show them. Instead of just like staring at me in my day-to-day life, getting on the subway, which is not interesting. Instead, okay, you want to stare at me? You want to take a photo? I'm going to give you some. It was the sense of like taking my power back in that sense
Yeah.
and being able to show a different person, a different, I was playing characters. So I get to show you a mother, a daughter, a friend that you're going to empathize with, you're going to laugh with, you're going to explore an emotion with. So it wasn't just surface level. It gave them something deeper to connect with me on. And I felt it was like me controlling the ability of how people saw me.
Absolutely. That's incredible. What were your favorite roles to play?
Oh my God. I'm a character actress by nature. I love a laugh. That's how I've coped through life, is finding humor or silliness both in myself and others and people. And I think I always like my dream role is Mrs. Lovett in Sweeney Todd, if anyone is a Sweeney Todd fan. I got to play Madame Thénardier in Les Mis when I was very young, and that was so much fun. I got to play Bottom in Midsummer's Night Dream. Like, I always love these kind of big character roles where I really got to. I'm very expressive. If you tied my hands behind my back, I couldn't talk. And so really getting to bring out that side of myself is so much fun. And I really just love having fun on stage and helping other people enjoy and laugh, especially in a time in the world where things are so heavy.
Absolutely. It's interesting because it does, to me, it's a field that really does relate a lot to our work as therapists.
Yeah.
Getting to utilize different sides of ourselves when we're with different people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it takes, I find like a lot to slow down, reattune, and it, I've never been an actor, but I like can imagine that. So what actually drew you then? I know you had the academic passion, and you go and you find this major. It sounds like that really stuck out to you.
Yeah.
What drew you to actually becoming a therapist?
Yeah. So a little more about my background. When I was 8 years old, my mother, her whole life had struggled with bipolar. And unfortunately, when I was 8, we lost her to suicide. So from a very young age, I saw what mental health and the power of mental health can do to a human being. My mother was the most energetic human who ever walked in the room. She was a big avid churchgoer, and so expressive, had the most beautiful singing voice, and you would have had no idea what was going on underneath at all and what she was really battling underneath it all. So losing her, I mean, it's the hardest thing I've ever been through by all means. And so I started, like, I always knew about mental health and I had researched it because I was very interested in what had happened to my mother and how to not have that happen to anybody else. It became kind of like almost an obsessive thought a little bit. And so I've always been drawn to it, and I always thought about doing therapy. It was actually my dad, when I was picking my major in college in my bachelor's degree, that was like, I wanted to kind of do psychology and therapy, but he was like, you should do theater. You're so good at it. So I wound up studying musical theater instead. But it was always inside of me that I wanted to make a difference in the world. I didn't want what happened to my mom to happen to anybody else. And I've studied enough and I know enough now, and I'm depersonalized enough that you can't 100% prevent it. I don't expect that. And I do a lot of work to make sure I don't project what happened with my mother on my clients at all. But I did a lot of research in grad school on suicide to make sure when I stepped into that room and I was dealing with a client with suicidal ideation, and we know the importance of talking about it.
100%.
Talking about it is how we save lives. So I have to be able to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I have to. It's what saves lives. And really doing that research on the small stats around who actually makes the choice that my mother made. It was very important work for me to do academically and also my own therapy. I've been in therapy most of my life off and on to kind of learn to navigate the world without my mother. But I live to make her proud. She drives me every day to be a good person. So many people say, it's funny how much your genetics sit in you because everyone's like, you're just like her. And she only raised me until I was 8 years old. But they're like, any of her family, anyone who knew her is like, you were just the spitting image of her. You have no idea. So she lives in there, and I live for her. I want to live the life that she wasn't able to live as a result of her mental health and help people with complex mental health. I know what it is when you give up, and I know what it does not only to the person, but to the family, and that, like, your life is worth living. Trust me, you're needed.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, of course.
I think that's what's so important is this is what is so real, that we all have different parts of ourselves that we usually don't bring into the room, with
Right.
our clients, but it's what
No.
brought us exactly to this day and
Yeah.
place. And then one thing I've learned a lot about from you is some disabilities we can see and some you can't see.
Yeah.
And sometimes our clients are bringing things in the room that we can't see.
Right.
We can't see their histories. We can't see their traumas. We can't see their childhood.
Yeah.
And we have to, stay attuned and really listen and stay curious to what
Yeah.
someone's bringing in. And we also sometimes can't see how strong they've been, like what they've been through to get in through that door, to sit down in the chair in front of us.
Yeah. Until they're ready for it. Like, so much of our job to me as therapists is like sitting with someone and helping them be ready to tell you the truth, whatever that truth is for them, to open up, to shed that guard that is maybe at times stopping them from being able to be present and live the beautiful life they deserve, and letting them just shed and shed and shed until they can finally tell you what they've needed to tell you maybe the whole time. But it's such an honorable position to be in,
It is.
but also challenging at times because you meet somebody and you never know. You never know what they've been through and what they've needed to maybe in their own way hide because of their own shame.
How do you see like shame and substance abuse and stigma? We've talked
Oh my
about
God,
that,
yeah.
like this intersection with disability particularly.
Yeah, and I think it comes from people's misconceptions of all of it, of disability, especially of substance use disorder. There's such a misconception about what it looks like and how it functions. And I think we get to meet people who are so incredibly successful, family-oriented individuals, beautiful human beings who have sometimes even healthy marriages, healthy lives, but underneath it all are struggling. And I think the same can be true for disability. You either simplify somebody to just their disability, or you simplify somebody to just their substance use disorder, and you don't see the complex human, what brought them there, all of the other facets of their personality that are so present within those two identities, right? We simplify individuals to just one identity. Sometimes your race, sometimes your sex, sometimes your gender orientation, sexual orientation, immigration status, whatever it is, we will simplify somebody to one identity. And that robs us so much of like humanity, because we're all connected in this own way. And substance use disorder and disability, the way I've found that interconnection, it's just so interesting because the big thing is community for both. Community healing by, for me, what helped me cope with my disability was finding other little people and learning to love them. And I fell in love with them, both platonically and romantically.
How did you find them? How did you find your community?
Little People of America. It was an organization, a national organization that is still around today. And I went to these national conferences. They happen in around the 4th of July every year. And it took me years to really find my tribe within that and find, because there's thousands of little people that go to one place. But I found friends, I found partners, I found all of that within that community. And realizing how much I love them and how beautiful I think they are, it started to help me see, oh, wait, why don't I give that back to me? Why am I so hard on myself about my stature or my identity? Loving these people, the first place it starts with is loving myself. And I think that's so true to substance use disorder too. It's why we do group therapy. You're not alone. What you're going through happens to so many people. And in like the beautiful group therapeutic space, some of the most, sometimes as a facilitator, you sit there and the most profound thing said of that the clients, by all means, and their own life experience and their support of somebody else is better than any support I could give, even as a professional at times.
I'm Ricky, recovery support clinician here at Mountainside. We offer a healthcare professionals program for physicians, nurses, dentists, and therapists. Our team of board-certified addiction specialists provide discreet, comprehensive treatment for substance use and co-occurring disorders. We're here to help you achieve sustainable recovery with a plan built around your unique needs. Reach out to admissions at mountainside.com for more details.
And I think, too, it allows us to forgive ourselves and accept ourselves, like you said. Like, we see in someone, like, all their beauty, all their strength. And if they're struggling just like I am, that self-forgiveness. And then also just, like, learning about who we are by the way we engage with others.
Right.
Like, there's no other way sometimes, like, to really get to know yourself, too.
Yeah.
I think as well as that group therapy. I'm still so curious too, like it's interesting, and I think a lot of our clients might relate to this too, how you mentioned before you were the only little person in your family, in your whole genetic line.
Yeah.
And I know for some of our clients too, they find this sense of community here at Mountainside, in the rooms, but it's difficult, like when the people that you love the most maybe in your life, that raised you, that you might be married to, etc., don't understand they haven't had that experience.
Yeah.
Of being that. Can you share a little more about that again, just like what that uniqueness of like for you, like your own family.
And I think it's, it's also, and it's about also finding that uniqueness is powerful. Like you get to be someone in your family, with dwarfism. I got to give it to my dad, who like went to the library the moment he found out I had dwarfism. This was back in the 90s to age myself. And he had to go to the library and just like read books on dwarfism. He had no idea what was going on. And there's still definitely times when I went through experiences and I don't think my family knew what to do or how to handle it. The surgeries, the things that come along with my disability, that they did their best to navigate. Absolutely. But it was why he wanted me to meet other little people, because no matter how much he tried and read and studied, he couldn't always quite get it. And I think that same thing comes to, but I think to bring it to that point, I was able to teach him. And I was able to find this unique identity that's made my family, such advocates for me, such advocates for other little people. And really, through just listening and learning from me, they started to understand it more. And I kind of see that same thing for our clients, where them going through what they went through, as horrible as it can be, and as the times when you don't deserve it, if you can find that your experience has made you who you are today, without them, you wouldn't be. And I wouldn't want to be coming to the understanding that I don't want to be different. I want to be who I am, because I would not be Sarah Fulkins as I exist now without the struggles I've been through. And I sort of try to work on that in terms of mental health with others as well, where your struggle is what makes you powerful. It's what makes you social. Look at what you lived through, right? If you were able to have children, be successful in your career, all while struggling with substance use disorder, oh my gosh, you are powerful. You are smart and you are capable. And now you're choosing to not have those things in your life. What are you going to do in this world? How amazing. And without those experiences, you wouldn't be the wonderful person you are. So I hope, it is an onus on our clients that they do have to kind of become educators for their family a lot of times. But if they can find the power and strength in their unique experiences and understand it gave them a view of the world that truly no one else has.
That's so powerful.
Right. And it's their strength. It's what feels like a weakness sometimes, I think, can become your biggest strength and your biggest tool and power in this world. So many people with substance use disorder become some of our best peers. The best people I work with often are the people who've been through it themselves. And that's so important in our community, and finding that and giving that passion back, giving those experiences back to others. And I found that too by becoming an advocate for community, becoming a mentor for younger little people. It's the most fulfilling thing in the world. I don't know that I feel more fulfilled than when I see like a little person and get to have an honest talk and like either mentor or just support them.
That's huge. I mean, it speaks to representation matters so much.
So much.
It's so important to see people that look like us, to see different people in different positions of power, different
Yep.
jobs. I mean, I wonder, did you ever have a little person teacher, growing up?
No.
Yeah.
No, but we did have, actually did grow up with a family of little people near me. And it was a mom, dad, and their son. I went to high school with their son. We were not friends. He was a cool football player or he did like something on the football team, and I was a theater nerd.
You're a
I
real
was
theater
doing the
person.
musical
I love
theater
it. I
all
love it.
day. So like
Yeah.
we didn't particularly connect, but I remember being like seeing them in my community. I
Mhm.
wasn't alone. I always knew other little people existed, and I think that was in and of itself helpful. And then going through LPA and having those conversations with other people who were husbands, wives, doctors, lawyers, little people are everything. Brilliant often. And getting to meet those individuals kind of let me know what's possible. And again, I just got to give it to my father, who like really always told me, like, you are your own limitations. Like, you can be whatever you want to be in this world. It's up to you. He very much encouraged me to go into more of an academic kind of career, just because he knew my mind would be my power. He was like, no one can take your education away from you. That's something that's really important. So get educated, and no one can take that from you. It doesn't matter how tall you are. That doesn't impact your education and your ability to learn at all.
Yeah, and your advocacy,
Yeah.
bringing it back. And I'm sure that you mentioned coming to these communities. Everyone's got, different positions, different jobs. You, as the substance abuse therapist specialist in the
Yeah.
room too, can you share a bit about what you're seeing in the community with substance use disorders particularly?
Yeah. I'm going to argue something. I think people with substance use disorder are some of the smartest people
Mm-hmm.
in our world, and I think that's something that people are very wrong about. They're very intelligent. These humans, I don't like saying like othering, but the people I have the pleasure of working with are like incredibly intelligent and introspective, and are coming to terms with so much and unpacking so much. But they are often like, you see like the amount of individuals I meet who have above average academic performance, and it's almost like they're so smart that their own brain has gotten in the way of them, because there's so much going on in their head at all times, and they're battling that at all times, trying to fit in. And the biggest thing I find is just like, what is it? It's this barrier to connection often that people are so often struggling with. And when you get to know them without the substances, they think a lot of my clients feel they need a substance to be interesting, to be funny, to be smart. And then I'm getting to meet them sober in therapy, and I'm like, no, you're like very interesting and funny and smart. Like you don't need substances to be that way. But there's some kind of insecurity going on underneath that has taught them that who they are, how they exist, how they speak, how they function is not right. And it needs to be altered. And, that's sort of the beautiful journey we get to go on with them, is like, no, exactly as you are is perfect and is exactly who you need to be. And that's what I see so commonly in the community. It's just this misconception people have of themselves. And I get to see it and challenge them on those thoughts of themselves and how others perceive them, and hopefully let them see that wrongs and rights are not black and white. We're human. You're gonna make mistakes. I hate to tell you, nobody's not made a mistake. I've made so many in my life, and I will continue to. I will try not to, but I will. And so will you. And so will all of us. And it's not right, I did wrong, and now I have to beat myself up for 20 years for this wrong I did in the world. No, you did the wrong. You acknowledged it. Good on you. You need to. You apologized. You made amends. And now what are you going to do to move on and to just be present and enjoy your life? Because just because you made a mistake doesn't mean you don't get to enjoy this world. You need to, and you deserve to, and that's what will help you heal from your past.
That was very well said. What if someone makes a mistake in regards to disability? What if someone
Yeah.
non-disabled makes a mistake in the way they address something?
Sure.
How do you suggest people handle that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think hopefully that individual will say something if you have offended, or like for me with dwarfism, the term midget is offensive. Anyone calls me midget, I will very quickly be like, nope. One, my name is Sarah. You can just call me Sarah. But if you need to refer to my disability for any reason, I prefer to be called a little person. Dwarfism is what I medically am if you need to use that. But I'm not comfortable with that term. And I think just listen and respect what the person in front of you is saying, and the term that you've used or the thing you've said that you've made a mistake on. Just listen and respect and say, okay, and do your best to not do it again.
Yeah.
But like the only way you're going to know is you're going to make mistakes. You might say the wrong term. And if you're ever questioning a term or how to refer to somebody, just ask them.
Yep.
Just like simply ask the question, and try to overcome your own ableism in that sense. That I think a lot of what can happen in ableism is this assumption that what I've commonly seen is that like this person doesn't know about who they are and what they want because they're disabled and they need someone else to speak for them. A common thing I've seen and I've experienced is someone not speaking to me. If I have an average height friend to me, speaking to my average height friend. No, you can talk to me. You can ask me questions about myself, especially when there's an adult. Ask the person. They're the expert on themselves, and just watch your own bias in that sense. If you're finding that you have questions about somebody with a disability and you're going to their friend or family without that disability, ask that question. Maybe just speak to the person in front of you directly and ask questions. And they may not listen. The other thing, we may not always want to educate.
Yeah. That's a huge
It might
one.
be
Can
a
you say
day where
more
I
about
don't
this?
want to be an
Right.
educator, or I'm just on the subway and I'm tired. So just respect that too.
100%.
If
Yeah.
you can, if someone's just like not in the mood to do an academic talk on their disability, respect that too. And then maybe ask their friends or family. But start with the person.
And that too, for a lot of our listeners too, it's like, is substance use disorder a disability?
Yes.
Yeah. So I know that comes up a lot for people. Like sometimes you can see it and sometimes you can't.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's very like, it's not that people was like, no one is forced to identify with the term disability. That's for your discretion. However you want to be referred to in life in general, to me, is at your discretion. But I think the important thing to note is like when it comes to access to care. That's why identifying with things like disability can be very important for individuals, because especially with substance use disorder, a big barrier I think we often see is, hey, I think rehab's going to be best for you. We're working with individuals who need detox or rehab, just where they're at in their life, will be, well, I can't get out of work. Completely fair. Completely fair. We all have to work. It's an expensive world. But you do have access to resources. You have the ability to take an FMLA for having substance use disorder. It is a qualifying disability that you can get coverage for. And so I think finding or learning to accept these words, it's also learning to accept help and access, and that it's okay that you have this thing happening with you, that you need some additional support because the world's not built for you, or you need some time off of work, whatever it is. And there are resources available to help you get the care that you need. And there's nothing wrong with needing that help.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
Another thing we touched on before, I think would be really, not to put you in the spot of educator, but what are you seeing as far as like substance misuse among the community of little people?
Yeah.
I know we've seen rates go up and down for everyone, with different substances. So I'm curious what you're seeing.
So, I mean, to be transparent, there's not a lot of individual data on substance use disorder. It's more on disability on the whole. We definitely see higher rates of substance use disorder in individuals with disability. We're such a minority status as little people, but just in living and supporting the community, the rates are higher.
What do you make of that?
I think it's a hard world that we live in. And there's a lot to cope with being a little person in terms of how society perceives you. So, for example, if you're a young college kid and you're a little person, going to a bar can be a really nerve-wracking environment to be in. You're around a bunch of drunk 19, 20-year-olds. They're not always the nicest of people. And I think there's a lot to cope with in terms of insecurity, what society says, especially the way media portrays little people. It's a lot to overcome. And it can be a very, as we see so commonly with substance use disorder, one of the key things we work on with clients is not isolating. Disability in and of itself is so isolating. So it increases that rate and that chance. And we see increased alcohol use within my community, as well as like access to opioids at a really young age. And needed, to be clear, needed because there's surgeries. So you're also getting exposed to certain substances from a doctor's perspective often at a younger age. So that's just going to naturally increase your chance and rate of addiction and struggling with a substance. And I also, one other thing with my community specifically, we want to be treated like adults, right? In every way, I want to be treated like an equal. And so there's this thing of, well, I want to drink as much as my friends drink. And that's not always the best thing for us. Like, there's nothing wrong with drinking less because you're little, and not being the tank or shit. Like, there's a little bit of that I think I've also definitely experienced in my life, in terms of like showing that you're an equal, you can handle it, because of coping again with your own insecurity or not wanting to be less than or not as capable as somebody else, even as with something like drinking.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think we see that a lot, like you mentioned, too, just that wanting to fit in.
Yeah.
That doesn't leave us even as adults.
No.
As adults, we all still want to fit in.
Yeah, you still walk into a room, you want to find a smiling face. It's like, I feel like a laugh with a friend is like a free drug. There's nothing like finding a laugh, finding that common experience with another human. And it's in our nature. Like, humans need other people. It's psychologically within us. And so that drive and that want to fit in is also just like a survival instinct. And you can't fight it. It's just who you are. But learning, I think, that we are enough. In every space we walk into, you are strong enough, capable enough. You don't need anything. No one needs to accept you. If you accept yourself, you don't need the validation of others.
It's huge. What are some other things you would like our listeners to know? I know you know so much and you've done you've done so much education on disability in general. And I think it's really helpful for us as clinicians.
Yeah.
I know you presented to our team and it was incredibly eye-opening. Because unfortunately, I think most master's level mental health programs don't spend as much time as they should on disabilities and how to actually provide treatment, care. So what are some things that what would you want to say to clinical providers that are out there listening?
Yeah, I think so much of our work as clinicians is introspection all the time on our own biases, right? From racism to sexism, homophobia, and also ableism. Like, check yourself every so often. And the biggest thing that, like, the tools that are most helpful or found to be most empirically best for individuals with disabilities, person-centered, individualized care. Understand that that person is not their disability. And you go research it, go learn about it, but listen to that person's experience. Like, really try to understand what their experience of that disability is. Like, I'm not Little People, Big World. I'm a very different woman than that. So if you watched that show and assumed I operated and moved like that family, you'd be very wrong. So instead, listen to me and listen to my experience of the world. So definitely that person-centered, individualized, strength-based. I think the biggest thing that has helped me in my life is learning to love myself and learning that my disability is my strength. Like, I have a very unique gift that everyone at Mountainside probably knows who I am at this point. I'm the only little person that works here. So the second you meet me, you remember me. And I've learned to use that as a strength. I don't have to work that hard to network. I just network by being in a room. And so what are the strengths that come with your disability? What are those unique perspectives you get to have that make it a strength in your life, while also, of course, empathizing with the areas of their lives that are harder? and focus and, helping them work through that with that trauma-informed approach. It's innate. I mean, I'd argue, and I would be curious, Janet, I think every human goes through trauma at some point in their life. I don't think we move through the world without it. But with disability, there's some compacting trauma that's going to happen there by nature of society and how the environment currently exists. So make sure that you're keeping that in mind, that you're exploring that with your client when and how they feel ready. But really individualized care, not generalizing based on their disability, making assumptions based on their disability. They are just like we know, our clients are the experts on their own lives, and we are just a vessel that they're going to use to understand themselves. I am not the expert on my client. They are the expert on themselves. And disability is the same way. They're the expert on their own lives. So do everything you can to learn from that person, to understand that person and their unique experience, because they're an individual behind all of it. And there's so much, they may not want to talk about their disability. They may not be ready, and that's okay. Then talk about their family history or their family trauma. If you met me, you would think I'd just been through my dwarfism and have no idea what happened with my mom. There's a whole other thing I got to unpack in therapy. Similar, that you never know what's going on behind somebody. So just really make sure you're checking, you're doing that internalized work, that none of your own biases or assumptions are getting in the way of helping somebody else.
That's really good clinical advice, Sarah. This question didn't really weave in anywhere else, but I am curious, like when you were little, when you knew that you were a little person.
I always knew. Like, I know some people have these awakenings. I've seen it in documentaries of even other little people. Jenna, I don't remember a time that I didn't know. I always knew I was a little person. There was never I do remember asking my dad when I was going to get a growth spurt, and he just went, "You're not." And that was when it really sunk in how short I was going to be. I think because when you're a kid, you're a head shorter. Now I'm a torso shorter than most people. I'm about the size of a 5-year-old, and I'm 35. So I think that was kind of when it started to sink in. My friends started to get growth spurts, and I was really not getting a growth spurt. And then I remember the first time I got followed in a store by a kid. I was 10 years old. And I think it's when my age and my stature started to not align. Because before that, people just assumed I was younger, I think, because I was a baby. But right around 10, my face and the way I looked started to look older than my size was. And I remember the first time a kid followed me through a Walmart and was complete. Where their parents were, I don't know. But I remember crying in the car with my dad and being why did they follow me? He at the time didn't really know how to handle it, but he was just there's just a kid. Don't worry about it. So he did his best to move through it in the moment, but I can remember the first time I was stared at, really intently stared at, and that kind of hit me that I looked different. I think it took a few years before I realized how different I was going to look. And by the time I got that, it just kind of happened gradually. There was no awakening of being short. I've just always been really short.
Wow. Thank you so much for all of this. I mean, it's amazing too. I think that last part is really important. Sometimes I think of our listeners, those moments, getting to unpack those moments. I mean, it's incredible when our memory and our mind is so young.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the very first time being in kindergarten was when I did the Chinese dirty knees, I slant thing, and it's such the little song, and it's so distinctly seared in my memory too. And it's just interesting how those we still carry those first sometimes.
Yeah.
And we carry them in our body, and getting to slow down, I think, and talk about them is really important.
I mean, that's why we all need therapy.
Yeah. That's why we all need therapy. Well, I'm so glad you chose, of all the things you could have chosen. I mean, I can't stop seeing the theater in you. I'm oh my God, I wish we need to do a Mountainside play. We need a Mountainside musical with Sarah Fulkins. I mean, I see it, but I'm really glad you chose therapy, advocacy, mental health. And, the work you do here is so invaluable. You are often the first face that so many of our clients meet and see. And Sarah does our assessments, and she carries a caseload. So thank you for being with us. And thank
I love
you
it.
so much for coming into Chelsea to your old stomping grounds.
Now it's stomping grounds.
She was a primary therapist right here downstairs in our
Sure was.
Chelsea IOP for our first year,
Yeah.
So we're so glad you're here and what you bring to the table. And thank you for sharing it with us. And thank you for taking the time to offer us all some education today. Where can people find you or follow you if they wanted to?
My accounts are private, so I'm a therapist.
That's okay.
So
That's real.
it's all generally private just because of what I do for work.
Yeah.
But so you can come to Mountainside Treatment Center
And get
if
an
you need
assessment.
support, and I would be happy to meet with you. But yeah, I'm not hugely on social anymore just because of
The work we do.
the work we do and out of respect for my clients and also
Yeah.
my own. I want to stay as discreet as possible so I can be the blank slate they need me to be. And no, I love my job. I absolutely love what I do. I'm so happy I moved to this career, and I'm just excited to continue to grow. I think I love our work the most because I learn every day from brilliant women like yourself and all my amazing coworkers and my brilliant clients. They teach me every day too, and it's such an honor to do this job. And I never take away the privilege to hold space and for people to be as beautifully vulnerable as they are with us. That's a privilege every day that I'm so grateful for.
If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, Mountainside can help. Call 860-365-6764 to speak with our caring treatment team.